Mayor, I believe everyone is here and we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, commissioners, staff, and public are attending by way of conference call. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so that the public that is participating knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from Kansas Attorney General. And verbatim, when the public is participating in a public meeting by telephone or other medium of interactive communication, members of the body must take steps to help the public understand the proceedings despite not being physically present. For example, each speaker in the meeting should identify herself by name before speaking or voting so remote listeners or observers can more readily know who is speaking. Likewise, each motion should be clearly stated and each vote tally clearly announced. We'll now call the meeting to order. Bridget, would you please call the roll?
Roll call. Markley,
Here.
Walters, Commissioner Walters,
Here.
Philbrook,
Philbrook here.
Bynum,
Here.
Burrows,
Here.
Townsend,
Here.
McKiernan,
Here.
Ramirez,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Alvey.
Here. This evening, our invocation is being given by our very own Commissioner Harold Johnson of Faith Deliverance Church of God in Christ.
Let us bow our heads. Eternal Father, we are so thankful to you for your grace and your mercy. We are in such a tenuous time right now. And in these days, God, we cling to your hand. We are mindful of all of those persons that have been affected by this virus, this COVID-19. And we pray, Lord, that you would comfort those that are clinging on to life and even the families that are there to try to support. Continue to lift up our first responders that are reaching out and running into problems and peril in times of need when others are running away. We ask you that you would comfort them, that you would cover them, and be with them in all that we say and do. Help us, Lord, to make great decisions as leaders of this community, to be mindful of every participant, to be mindful of every person in Wyandotte County, great or small, from the least to the greatest. We pray this in the matchless name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I'd ask the clerk, are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a blue sheet has been distributed. Under section 10, the administrator's agenda, we have 3 new items. The first item is item number 2, which is a resolution for Spira Care Acknowledgement Agreement and Assessment. Item number 3 is a resolution, which is a memorandum of understanding and letter of understanding for UCF, which is the United Food and Commercial Workers District Union Local 2, Public Safety Dispatch Division. And our final item is going to be an item number 4, which is a resolution, which is also a memorandum of understanding for the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 4. Those are the only additions we have, sir.
Thank you. So up now is the consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or the county administrator wish to set aside any item on the consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the consent agenda will be voted on by one vote. Do we have anybody from the public who is asking to set aside?
Mayor, I see Commissioner McKernan.
Yes.
I would
Commissioner McKiernan?
This is Commissioner McKiernan. I would make a motion that all items be approved as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows, Commissioner Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye. Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have a public hearing to consider the Westfield Community Improvement District and the development agreement. I'd ask Catherine Carter to present this item.
Good evening. This is Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. I am going to now share my screen for a presentation. Hopefully. Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Should be able to, yes.
Okay, wonderful. This was a item that was heard at Economic Development and Finance Committee back on March 2nd. So I'm going to go through a brief presentation very similar to the one that was given that evening. Jeff Berg, the petitioner, is somewhere on Zoom. And so if there are questions, I believe he should be able to answer them. But I can also answer as many questions as we have. So the Westfield Shopping Center is over at 82nd and State. They have asked for a petition for a community improvement district. As you can see there, this is what the shopping center looks like today. It's a strong shopping center. The Save-A-Lot, CVS are some of the strongest in the region. There's a variety of other stores. It's pretty much completely full. However, as you can tell from this picture, it could use a facelift and some beautification. And additionally, there are some actual significant cases of improvement, such as a new roof, that are necessary. So what the petitioner is requesting is an additional 1% sales tax on sales of goods and services within the property. The total investment anticipated is just under $9 million, but we've negotiated a cap on the CID reimbursable costs at about 2.5. The bulk of those reimbursable costs at 1.7 million will go to actual capital improvements, such as the new roof, facade improvements, signage enhancements, parking lot improvements, landscaping, environmental remediation, and other capital improvements. The current level of property taxes is just under $165,000. That will not change. We will continue to receive that. Additionally, the UG and the other relevant taxing jurisdictions will also continue to receive the normal sales tax revenues. This is just a picture of kind of a schematic of what they're planning. You can see some additional landscaping, some significant improvements to the parking lot. This is a rendering of the proposed facade improvements, just to make it look, a little more 21st century. Here's another picture of that in more detail. So as I mentioned, we would retain the current property tax level. They would be applying for an NRA that would only be on the increase of the property taxes for the first 5 years. Then starting in year 6, we get whatever that increased property tax in addition to the $164,000. And then with these improvements, and once the world is back to normal, we would anticipate increased sales, in which case there would actually be increased sales tax revenue over what is currently seen today. So for your consideration today, we'll have a public hearing, and then there's 2 actions. One is the ordinance to create the Westfield CID, and the other is a resolution to approve the development agreement.
So Mayor, at this time, I would recommend we move forward with the public hearing.
All right, so I now open the public hearing. Ask if there's anyone participating by phone who would like to speak in favor. If so, please state your name and city of residency. We'll give people a chance just in case they're trying to unmute themselves.
There are 3 people in the queue. If you would like to speak, please hit the raise hand.
Okay. Who is up first? Doug?
I don't believe we have anybody that has expressed their interest to speak from the public.
Move for approval.
We do have a commissioner that has asked a question if you want to close the public hearing.
No, we also have to ask if there's anyone who'd like to speak in opposition. I
Oh, I'm
also,
sorry.
first, ask the clerk, were there any letters of support submitted to the clerk's office?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there was a letter of support from the Wyandotte Economic Development Council. The letter of support reads, "My name is Greg Kendall, President of Wyandotte Economic Development Council and a resident of Kansas City, Kansas. Mayor, Commissioners, UG team, please accept this letter in support of the unified government contributing $175,000 to OutCap for a loss revenue fund, which enables OutCap to secure and lend $700,000 to businesses specifically in Wyandotte County. These are challenging times."
Bridgette,
No,
Yes.
I believe that pertains to a different item on the agenda tonight. That's for administrator.
Oh, Westfield,
item
yes,
number
sorry
1.
about that. Yeah,
Okay. So I'm taking there were no letters in support.
no letters of support.
Thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Again, if you're on the phone, please let us know. Again, I'd ask the clerk, were there any letters of opposition submitted to the clerk's office?
No letters of opposition.
Okay. There are no further comments from the public. I will close the public hearing. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments?
Commissioner Philbrook.
Yes, thank you. That is in my district, and I do want to say a couple of things about this major improvement. This, at one time, this center was doing a lot of struggling, and it has come back quite a bit in the last 5 years and is doing even better now. But I would say from experience of talking to some of the folks that have their businesses in there, yes, they're way past due putting in a new roof because yes, that has caused problems and some other issues with that. So I'm really happy to see them come forward and ask us for a little help to get the job done. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't see any further questions from the commission.
Move for approval.
We have 2 items. The first action is an ordinance establishing the CID. Is there a motion to establish the CID?
So moved by Commissioner Philbrook.
Second by Commissioner Ramirez.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Now entertain a motion for the resolution approving the development agreement.
So moved by Commissioner Philbrook.
Second by Commissioner
Second by Commissioner Burrows.
All right, we have a second by Commissioner Bynum. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Roll call Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. We now move to the administrator's agenda. We have a total of 4 items, 3 of which were added through the blue sheet as noted earlier. Item number 1 is the COVID-19 Small Business Relief Loan Fund. Mr. Bach.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll briefly talk about this. I'm going to have Catherine Carter explain the program a little bit more detail, and then I will talk about the funding option and how that works for us. But this is an opportunity for us to share in what ALTCAP is doing across the metropolitan area by contributing money that they've put in place. It leverages more money for Wyandotte County businesses. I'll go ahead and hit the point that our amount of money that we are positioning to go for this is really a backstop money. It's not money we have to advance out. We will have to budget for it in the coming year, but it's really that backstop in the event that some business defaults on it, and then we have to go and help cover that loan. Ms. Carter, I'll let you explain the program. You might hit your mute button.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen again, I think. All right. Look at technology in action. Okay. Yes, so as Doug mentioned, this would be a enhancement of the Small Business Relief Loan Fund that ALTCAP is currently doing. Before I get into that, I do want to give just kind of a high level update of what we've been doing the last almost month now in terms of small business assistance at the UG. So our top priority of our office has been providing real quality customer service in this time of flux to our local businesses. So many businesses have been calling with questions on a wide range of topics. Are they an essential business? Where are their different resources? Do they qualify for the grant, et cetera? So I do want to give a shout out to Shea Lockett, our small business liaison. In the last about 3 weeks, she's talked to, as of this morning, she's talked to 67 businesses. 38 of those businesses have started the grant application that the UG you all saw here, I think on the 26th. 4 of those grant applications have been approved. So those are $5,000 each. 3 more as of this end of this week will be completed and anticipate approval, which will leave us with 3 more to go. So as you can see, there is clearly a significant need. The grant we're looking at really focusing on kind of the super small business. And then there's kind of an intermediate area where we think that this loan fund could come into place where, you know, businesses that are just not able for a variety of reasons to receive assistance through the larger federal sources. So I will get into that. So as the Kansas City region responds to the COVID-19 pandemic, our small business community stands at extreme risk of economic injury or failure. These businesses have substantial need for liquidity at this time to cover fixed expenses, make their payroll, and then certainly once the recovery starts, be able to gear up and get back into a place when it's possible that they've lost significant assets in the meantime. So despite the federal action to assist small businesses, which have been wonderful, but many of the small businesses in our community are not able to access the loan funds through the SBA and other larger federal programs and even some of the state programs, given the need for previous business banking history and relationships. There's strict underwriting and eligibility requirements that require personal credit history, specific years in business, and collateral. as well as independent contractors versus employees. These are all issues that we have seen our businesses not be able to not be eligible for the larger EIDL and PPP programs through the SBA. Businesses owned by women and minorities who often have lower credit scores and fewer personal and business assets are even less likely to receive those funds. So how do we fill that gap in assistance when it is clearly needed? We do so with a small business relief loan fund and by partnering with AltCap. AltCap is a regional community development financial institution, a CDFI. They have been providing small business loans and microloans with less than a 5% default rate for the last 5 years. Of their loans that they have provided, 60% of borrowers have been minority-owned businesses and 30% have been women-owned businesses. They really have the structure in place already to provide small businesses with this flexible capital at low or no interest. And they're able to, they have the relationships with organizations like SourceLink, Women's Employment Network, Kauffman Foundation, where they can provide ongoing support for the businesses that they provide these loans for. So it's not just giving the loan and then saying, good luck. It is, here's a loan. Now we're going to work with you over the next few years to make sure first you're able to weather this immediate storm and then also get on your feet through the recovery. So by leveraging the public, private, and philanthropic dollars, AltCap has actually already created a small business relief loan fund. They're providing up to $100,000 per loan. They had their first round just 2 weeks ago was opened, and they found out very quickly that the need out there was far greater than the $5 million loan fund that they had in place could support. Of that first round, 1.3 million in requests were Wyandotte County resident or Wyandotte County based businesses. So our neighborhoods and communities are already familiar with AltCap and comfortable with applying for loans. So how can we make sure that in this time where it is so difficult to access capital, that our businesses have that specific access? And we can do that through providing funding for a loan loss reserve. Now, how that works is basically a loan loss reserve fund is a form of credit enhancement. So it's kind of like insurance that helps lenders control for the risk that loans will not be repaid. So here, what we are suggesting is $175,000 in loan loss reserve, and that will be multiplied by 4 to actually show what it can actually be loaned out. So this is the kind of insurance that a bank or other lending institution has, that they can make these larger loans, and if there is a default, there's funding that can cover that. Again, the AltCap has only had over the last 5 years, they have about a 5% default rate. These are clearly different times. So this is a little, 25% of the loan loss reserve is higher than a normal microloan finance, but we think that gives enough insurance that we can get a number of these loans out. So that would be a minimum of 28 loans to Wyandotte County businesses, and we're looking at a maximum size of $25,000. So just in terms of what these loans look like, while the AltCap original plan had much larger loans, we're kind of making this so that it really does fit that kind of middle range of businesses, of small businesses. So those that are likely not going to qualify for the larger federal dollars. So we're looking at a maximum of $25,000 in loan capital per business. Businesses have to be Wyandotte County based. Small businesses, so 20 employees or less, and have an annual revenue of less than $750,000. This is also, the focus really is businesses that are experiencing significant loss due to the stay-at-home ordinance, or order rather. So these, the loans start out at 0% interest. They, over the course of 3 years, do go up and end at about 4.5. If you can prepay, fantastic, no penalty. There's no origination fee. These are very, very flexible loans. You can also use them for almost anything, capital related, so payroll, fixed costs, inventory, etc. So I will turn it over to Doug to explain kind of what we're thinking in terms of budgeting for this.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. As she's explained, this does, the $175,000 does allow us to leverage the $700,000 for businesses. What we're thought on this is not all the money will be needed. In fact, we do not have to move any of the money from our budget to alt cap as you go through this process. So what we would do is, for cash basis purposes, we will need to set the money out there in 2021. Most likely, if it's ever needed, it would be probably in 23 or 24, if a loan actually goes into default. So if we set the money aside, it'll be part of our reserve dollars. And then we'll just carry that over from year to year until as the loans are paid off. And then we'll be able to pull some of this money back out. Also, I believe this program will be available for part of the federal reimbursement funds that come back in from the relief fund that was done by the federal government. With that, Mayor, I would recommend approval of this item.
Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
See one from Mr. McKernan.
Yes, Commissioner.
Just need to get over here and get faster on my unmute. So just a couple of questions, and Catherine, you and I had talked about possibly putting together a one-page infographic with just a really bulleted short summary about this that we might be able to distribute. Do you think that'll be possible to create?
Yes, we actually have Logan on that with the SOAR team. She's working on it, and so we hope to have that probably next week sometime.
Fantastic. And then what are our, other than going to the website, what are our plans to try to publicize this and get the word out so that people are aware and can begin the process?
A few things. We are currently having weekly business leader conference calls. So that's with everyone from all the different NBRs to the chamber, YEDC. All of them are aware of this, and so they will all be pushing this out through their different networks, as well as AltCap will also be doing their own marketing and pushing out. They have a one employee that is specifically, they only have about 4 employees. I think they're a small group, but one employee is specifically focused on the KCK Wyandotte County area, and so has really already started knocking on doors and trying to make sure that people are aware of this.
Thank you. And once we get that that summary ready, if you distribute that to all of us, we can certainly help spread the word.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
See Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. And thank you, Ms. Carter. Sorry about that. I have a question and then a comment. My question is, with the alt-cap loan, are home-based businesses eligible? Because I know I had a constituent reach out to me about our small business grant that our home-based businesses aren't eligible for our grant. Is this alt-cap loan, are they eligible for it?
I believe they should be. I can confirm that, but I don't know why they wouldn't be if they're, there's have all the other underwriting requirements. I will also mention that we are looking at different, some other options to increase our grant funding, since we'll almost be out. And if we are fortunate enough to have a second round of grant funding, one of the things that we have talked about. We've got a list of some changes, and one of those would be allowing for home-based businesses, as long as it was not to pay rent or something, but to actually pay payroll, inventory, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. And my my comment is overall thank you to the economic development and our small business grant employees who are doing with this and trying to do their best. These comments I hear a lot from a lot of the small businesses in my district. They're thankful from what's happening at the federal level, the state level, and private organizations that are providing, but they would like to see more happen from the UG. You know, they want more help from their local government. And I think that's very important. You know, I've been doing my own research of looking at cities and counties around the country and different strategies and really unique ways that they are helping their small businesses. So I hope that as we, as a governing body, as the commissioners, we can actually sit down and have a conversation and find a plan and how we can, so that when a small business gets a grant or a loan, they're able to use that to the best of their ability. And so I hope we can come up with a plan so that we have a better impact on our small businesses. Thank you.
Commissioner Burrows.
Thank you, Doug. I really think the 25% reserve is a generous reserve. I believe it will be a benefit for us to have that amount of reserve initially, but as these businesses find themselves ramping back up and finding the ability to continue to utilize what funds are available, the payback on that will be over a 5-year period. And I believe at that time, as you stated, we'll be able to ramp down those additional dollars for those reserves. But I really think the 25% reserve is a generous reserve, and I have strong support of this initiative.
Thanks.
Mayor, I do not see any other questions from the commission.
Okay, thank you.
We have a letter.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, we have a letter of support that was found in the clerk's office this evening.
Okay, thank you.
So the letter of support is from Wyandotte Economic Development Council. It's saying that my name is Greg Kendall, president of Wyandotte Economic Development Council and a resident of Kansas City, Kansas. Mayor, Commissioners, UG team, please accept this letter in support of the unified government contributing $175,000 to OutCap for a long lost reserve fund, which will enable OutCap to secure and lend $700,000 to businesses specifically in Wyandotte County. These are challenging times, as we all know, and our business community is facing financial burdens unlike any we could have anticipated. The UG Small Business Grant Program is fantastic, but those grant funds cannot meet all the needs, nor does the UG likely have the financial capacity to fund it to meet the maximum needs. OutCap was an earlier initiator of the smaller loan fund program that could respond to the business requests within a couple of days. Wyandotte County businesses made more than 1.3 million requests within just a few days before those funds were depleted. The funds being requested would only support Wyandotte County request and serve as a backstop should there be a default. We believe this is a prudent decision and one that supports the broadest numbers of businesses in our community while leveraging funds from a larger financial resource pool. Thank you for your work and for doing support the business community during this time. Thank you, Greg Kendall.
Thank you. All right. I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I have Commissioner McKernan.
Okay, thank you.
This is Brian McKiernan. I move to approve as submitted.
Commissioner Burrows.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Roll call, Markley. Walters. Commissioner Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Walters. The vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us to item number 2, SpiroCare Acknowledgement Agreement and Assignment. Mr. Bach?
Thank you, Mayor Alvey. We've seen a few more come of these. It's been a few months since we've had any. These are all have been in association with the area out around Schlitterbahn and that property as it has been sold out. Originally, the properties were part of the initial agreement that we had with the Henry family in that area. As they've been sold, it takes additional, these developments come out and they do their own assignment and assumption of the property. So it really just goes through as part of the land sale. This property has been built for some time. It is the facility that sits right south of the car wash facility that's out there, I believe, or the gas station that's right in that area. I would consider this fairly routine to allow this transfer of property ownership to continue, and would recommend it for approval.
Commissioner Markley, move to.
Commissioner Ramirez, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the commission?
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Roll call Markley.
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 3 is a memorandum of understanding and letter of understanding with United Food and Commercial Workers District Union Local 2 Public Safety Dispatch Division. Mr. Bach?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item of, we've been under negotiation with this group for several months. It is for the years 2021 and 22. It is being done in accordance with the direction that have conveyed to the commission during executive sessions when we have discussed labor negotiations. I will clarify that when we did discuss some increases earlier coming in from 2019, there is no retroactivity to that portion of it. It all is active in 2020. I would recommend for approval.
Commissioner Mike Kane, yes, motion, sorry.
Markley, second.
Any comments or questions from the commission?
I do not see any hands raised, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call Markley.
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 4 is a memorandum of understanding with Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 4. Mr. Bach?
Mayor, as the previous item, this is one for calendar years 2021 and 22. It is in accordance with the direction from the governing body for this agreement. I would recommend approval.
Commissioner Mike Kane makes a motion.
Johnson, second.
Any comments or questions from the commission?
Mayor, I do not see anybody signaling a request.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call Markley.
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes the portion of our regular meeting. We are adjourned in that capacity. And I'll call us back to order as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. The consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside this item?
Mayor, I do not see anyone signaling.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion.
Markey, move to approve.
Johnson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call, Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting for the evening. Thank you all for your attendance. We are adjourned.
Thank you.